Do you mind sharing with everybody how you started Recall?
Yeah, for sure. So the original idea came from when I was working at a cybersecurity company called Multigo. That was the first company I joined after university in Cape Town. They worked a lot with knowledge graphs, and what they would do was they would connect data from lots of different sources and visualize it on a directed graph so you can see different connections between information coming from all these threat intel data sources. And at the time, like many people, I consumed a ton of online content, had a lot of interest, watched tons of YouTube videos, podcasts, blog posts, and articles. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool if I could visualize all the relationships between this content I was consuming in the same way that I was visualizing this threat intel data at work. So that was kind of the original idea and the basis of the idea for Recall. So I I started off with just my own implementation. I was using Evernote at the time, and I tried to implement the ideal workflow for myself just by saving content, manually categorizing it, manually creating summaries, and also manually trying to create connections between things. I then later moved on to Notion, but I found the workflow was just like very manual. And every couple of months, you'd have to go back and reorganize everything, and you'd always end up putting information in the wrong place. And I think a lot of people are related with that same problem. So when LLMs became widely available, I thought this was the perfect use case. And I was going to take the jump to try implement my own tool that basically took my workflow and automated the whole thing. So you could just click one button, get the summary, categorize it, and save it into a knowledge base so that you know you can find it again. So the original version wasn't that cool. It was a lot simpler. It just worked on Wikipedia pages, basically. And I did the first release for it on Product Hunt, just working on it as a side project, basically just for myself. And that launch actually, resulted in very few people actually continue using the product. But I continued to iterate on it, trying to make it better, talking to the few users that were using it on what they wanted on it with it. And eventually I built up a small user base, but was still not making any money from it. And then there was one post that I did online that actually completely changed the trajectory for Recall. I was actually in a stage where I wasn't sure if I was going to continue pursuing it because retention wasn't that great. There weren't that many users, and I didn't really see a path to making it into a profitable business. But I did this post on this website called Hacker News. I used quite a clickbait title. It was how to remember the things you're interested in, but I didn't say things. I said something else. But this post, like, it went quite viral and it ranked as the number one post for about 13 hours on Hacker News, which is a very, very popular website in the startup community in Silicon Valley. And it attracted a lot of attention. And luckily, it attracted attention from an investor who just emailed me basically. Emailed me and like said that they wanted to invest, and we exchanged a couple emails. We had one phone call, and then they decided they wanted to invest in the company. At that point, I didn't even have a business registered yet, so I quickly got all of the paperwork sorted out, and then I was ready to go. I quit my full-time job and I went all in on Recall, but I needed a team, so I started recruiting developers to help me. I had a couple of freelancers I was working with, and then a friend in Amsterdam said that they had a cousin that is a really good developer. And, family is always talking up their relatives, saying how good they are. So I was a bit skeptical at first, but this is how I originally was introduced to Igor. And he started off part-time freelancing for Recall. But yeah, my friend was definitely telling the truth because I soon realized that Igor is an incredible developer and I knew I had to have him on the team. So I asked him if he would join full time and become a co-founder. And yeah, fortunately, it didn't take that much persuading. He was keen to join. So he quit his job. He came over to Amsterdam or to meet because we hadn't met in real life yet. So yeah, he came over, stayed in my apartment. We got to, bond properly. And then, the deal was done and he joined the team. So that was like the early days. I won't go into too much more detail, but from there, we just continue to iterate on the product, always just trying to listen to customers and engage with customers as much as possible to see what to prioritize, what are the pain points, and how we can continue to improve. Yeah, then Sankri also joined the team. Igor and I are very technically focused. Although we did have some interesting ideas for growth hacks, we definitely needed someone on the business side to take over marketing, growth, support, and everything else that comes into running a business. So it was amazing to have Sankri join as another co-founder and COO. And yeah, from there, we just continued to grow. Another big milestone for us was last year when we got Product of the Month on Product Hunt. That was another moment that like changed the trajectory of the company, giving us a lot more exposure. And yeah, since then, we are growing the team, getting a lot of other amazing developers and marketing managers joining, which is very exciting. And yeah, like I mentioned already, one of our things that we really like to do is listen to our customers and try and make decisions based on that. And that is what brings us to today. An improved editor is a very much requested feature. Yeah, with that, I am going to hand over to Mason, who is going to give us a demo of the new editor. That's going to open.
Thank you so much, Paul. I find it very difficult to follow from such a great story, but we'll try our best. Yeah. Great. So let me first share my screen and I'll give it a few seconds. Cool. If everyone can't see, maybe just pop a message. Great. Cool. Okay. So yeah, for today's demonstration for the new editor, I am personally very excited about it. So we have created and prepared an example note so I can walk through all of the different functionalities and new features so that I can show you guys how to actually use the new editor. Now, with the new editor improvements, we converted Recall's editor into a block style editor. Some of you may have experienced similar tools already, but for today's demonstration purposes, I'll go back to a little bit like the foundations of what a block style editor actually entail. So inside a block style editor, every piece of content is basically considered as an individual unit that you can move, rearrange, and transform. Each block has a type, and depending on the block's type, there's different relevant actions that you can perform on this block as well. The most basic block type is basically just text. So when you're typing into a block, you're basically modifying the block. When you press enter, you've created a new block, etc., etc. Now, in the new editor, how you would create the blocks, you can basically type / that would open up a contextual menu where you can search for different block types to add. So for example, if you want to add a heading, or if you want to, let's say, add a table, you can just press / and do a quick search. So you can very easily add blocks without having to ever leave your keyboard. So that's one of my personal preferences, is like, I like typing. I don't like clicking away with the mouse. So I think that's a very important functionality to make more streamlined editing experience. Now, you can, of course, also add blocks with the icons on the side of every block. So if you press plus, it will insert a block at the bottom. You can do a search for the relevant block types that you would like to add. Great. I'm going to just quickly undo. Cool. So this is basically how you would add blocks. Each block, as I mentioned earlier, you can transform them. Each block has a type. So currently we are on this block and it's a heading 3. You can convert it into, let's say, a heading 6 or just normal text by clicking on the drag handle and just turn it into whatever type you want. I'm going to quickly undo, and each block can also be rearranged. This would help you to really keep your content organized. You can start typing first and later on come back to your notes and rearrange your content to make it into a more logical, formatted, structural flow. So to do that, you simply just click on the drag handle on the side here, and then you can drag any block across your entire notebook. And then if you don't really want to drag it anymore, you just press escape while you're holding down the button, and that way you can basically exit. Just to show you what it actually looks like when you drag and try to rearrange blocks, you can do that. Just cool. There you go. You can rearrange your blocks quite simply by just drag and dropping. Cool. So that's the core functionalities for the block style editor. Next, I would like to just go through some of the block types that we have within the new editor. Some of the features you might recognize from before, and some of the features we have introduced as new improvements to the editor, which I'll walk you through. So to start off with, we have some basic blocks, as I mentioned, text headings, etc., etc. You've already seen before. We also have block quotes and callouts, which you are most likely to use to highlight really important information within your editor. Next up, we also have lists. In the current version of the editor, we have 3 different types of lists: bulleted, numbered, and to-do lists. So currently what you can see are all just to-do lists. So if I wanted to turn this one into a bulleted list, you can individually turn these into whatever type of list points that you would like. And let's say if I want to turn this into a number list, there you go. So of course you can highlight all of the different points. Yes, Saks.
We just have a question in the chat specifically about the editor. For all the other questions in the chat, we're going to come back to it. It's a question from Gene. If he designates a block as code, how can he turn code back to text?
Well, in the editor, it's quite easy. Let's say if we turn this into code, right? In the editor, if you want to actually turn it back, you can basically just say undo with Control Z, and you'll be able to turn it back into text. Does that answer your question, Gene?
Suppose I don't realize till 3 days later that I want to convert it back to text. I can't do undo. Okay.
Right. So currently there is actually no way to undo that. But we can implement the turn back into text as well for code block. But generally speaking, you can also copy the content out of the code block into your editor with just copy and paste features, and that would become text as well.
Thanks, Mason.
Cool. And I think, yeah, with the list, if you want to turn everything into a different list type, you can also just select all of the list bullet points and turn it, let's say, into a number list, which work seamlessly. All right. So this organization blocks, one of the topics I'm quite excited about. These are brand new features we have introduced into the new editor features. Table of contents. So this specific block type are automatically created within every notebook. Basically, it would automatically reference all of the headings that exists within your note and create a navigation section to allow you to easily navigate around your notebook. So it comes in 2 forms. The first form is on the side here in the form of a side navigation. So you can see these are all the headings that exist with your notebook. You can also actually create a table of content by using the actual / menu. So here, if we create a table of content, you can see all the headings that exists within the book here in this view as well. So you can navigate them to different relevant sections, as I mentioned. So this is mostly a block type that helps you to really organize your content and easily navigate through things that you want to quickly and easily. So let's quickly go back to where we were. Let's also remove those so that it's a bit easier to see. Then the next block type is a toggle, one of the very highly requested user features. The main aim for toggle elements or block type is to allow users to easily organize their content. So it comes in 2 different sections. You have a heading where you can have plain text and headings within that toggle heading section. And you also have a content section where you can add any other block types. So for example, a code block within a toggle. And once you're done with modifying all of the content inside the toggle, you can quite easily collapse it to make your content easily visible and move on to the next sections that you would like to focus on. Great. So these are organization blocks. Moving on to the more advanced blocks, some of them already existed before in the old editor. We have just implemented more improvements to those. So to start off with images, as you can see, we have little brain here that can get pretty big or pretty small. So you can actually drag the image to resize there. And you can now align the images to the left, center, and right of the editor notebook. You can also add some captions. Scrolling. You can expand the image or preview if you would like to enlarge it to look at it in detail. You can download the image. And of course, just like any other block types, you can perform relevant actions like delete, duplicate, etc., etc. We also have introduced tables. For those of you who have experienced tables in the old editor, the only way to make it work is by copying a table from external sources into your own notes. And from there, you can modify. So now we actually have the ability to add tables directly into the note that you're taking. So just like that. I'm going to delete that. So within the table, there are some functionalities. You can basically add rows, add columns, and you can undo, redo the changes. You can apply background colors to specific individual styles, or you can apply background color to the entire table, right? And then you can also select rows and columns specifically to apply colors. There will be a lot more functionalities we can introduce to this block type as well. But of course, this would be some future improvements that we can implement. And code blocks is one of my favorites because, of course, I'm an engineer. So I definitely enjoy the code blocks a lot. We have implemented some additional functionalities in the code blocks where we have introduced code syntax highlighting for different coding languages. So for those of you in the audience who are more technical, this code block would be for you. And of course, with a code block, you can create like any other blocks by just pressing slash and search for code block and insert it. Great. And last but not least, we also have LaTeX equation support now. To add an equation, you can press the slash menu and then search for equation. The equation block is based on the LaTeX syntax formatting. So if you know a little bit about LaTeX, you will be able to use these equation blocks seamlessly in the Recall editor. This specific block would be very useful for studying, learning, and, like students who potentially have textbook related equations that they want to bring into their notebook. Cool. So these are all the new block types or existing block types with improvements. There are a lot more features that I haven't gone through, which I think I will leave for you to explore and actually provide us with feedback. But before we move on, there are some additional functionalities that I would like to quickly just show you. So since now we have reserved the slash for the context menu for adding blocks, you would probably ask, like, how do you actually create connections? Because that was the shortcut that was previously reserved for actually creating connections. So the new shortcut for actually creating connections is based on a lot of existing tools on how they do it. So if you press, I'm going to do this slowly so you can see, if you press back square brackets and then press the second one, that will be the shortcut to actually create connections. And the connections functionality pretty much is exactly the same as before. So for example, if I want to create a connection for, let's say, the Python programming lab, and now we can just do it like that. Of course, you can also create connections through the slash menu by just using the connections block. Let's say now I want to create a connection for Java. There we go. And you can also highlight some text. Let's say LaTeX. What does that mean? Create a connection. Great. So with the connections created, of course, you can go to your connections tab. You can see all the connections you just created. You can go on the graph view. You can also see these nodes with more knowledge that might be related. So this is now pretty useful because we have implemented all of these new features where before functionality is rather limited for, content that you save, but now you have the ability to create really rich formatted like journals, notes, etc., etc. And last but not least, in the editor, we have also listened to our users. If you remember how it was like before, to generate a summary, you would have to navigate to the chat tab, click on one of those nice looking buttons, generate a summary, detailed, concise, and then actually add that to the notebook. Now we have a much simpler way. So if you press / menu, you've probably already seen this. At the very top, you can basically create a concise or detailed summary directly in your notebook. So let me just quickly show you how that works. Great. So once you actually start generating it, the network might be a little bit slow. Great. So now a summary is generated. The summary is essentially just a special toggle block. So once the summary is generated, you can modify any content within. So for example, once you have generated a summary and you would like to continue from there to add your own content within these toggles, then you can do so. For example, add to-do list on what you might want to learn about the summary after you have consumed the knowledge. So that's pretty much concludes the actual demonstration in the notebook. And of course, now with all of this new feature added to the notebook, you can chat with much richer content in empty notes. Just quickly close that. Gosh, yeah, okay, cool. But let's say, if I ask a question about what it would now take the content within your notebook and create a response out of it. And of course, like before, you can add a chat response directly into your notebook, and that would create a toggle section, also fully edited, so you can modify the content within. And of course, I can't leave quiz out of the equation. With the notebook, you can also generate all of the quiz questions based on the content that you have now created on your own, rather than content created or consumed from external sources. Great. Let's start a quiz. What is the primary feature of a block style editor in Recall? Not sure if anyone has be willing to have a go at this, but this would conclude my presentation. Anyone with an answer? And I think it should be this last one. Great.
It's always awkward if you do a quiz on your own notes and you get it wrong.
Yes, exactly. I was actually getting a little nervous.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you very much. And of course, I haven't really been paying attention to the questions in the chat section. Yeah, but we do have a Q&A section later. We can definitely discuss more in detail for whatever question.
Mason, the only one I think if you can don't mind covering now, and we'll get to all the other questions later, it was just on if this is markdown formatted. We had Sam chip in and say he tried the double hash and got it to change the heading. So I don't know if you can just expand on that a little bit before we move on.
Yes, so markdown formatted, yes. You can copy markdown quite easily. I don't have really a piece of markdown text that I can copy over into the editor, but you can copy markdown directly into the editor and it will deserialize it into the correct format. So, but you also have specific shortcuts in the editor where, let's say, if you want to create a heading, you can type 2 slashes, space, and it will create a heading too, right? And then for, let's say, lists, you can use markdown syntax shortcuts, what do you call it? Hyphen, to create lists, etc., etc. And to create to-do lists. I can't remember the exact shortcuts, but like you get the points. But not just, markdown is not just for content ingestion. Now that I actually remember, we have implemented a copy notebook button for you to easily export the content from your own notes. Of course, you can, just like before, you can export to markdown. But now if you press this copy button, and depending on where you paste the content into, it could become like it be pasted in markdown format, or it could be pasted into rich text format into another editor, for example, Google Docs. So yeah, that's just something that to keep in mind of. There's always an easy way for you to get content out of recall as well as injecting the content into recall. Not sure if that answered your question. I can elaborate more if need be. Great. Cool. Okay, then I think, yeah, let's move on. I think if there's enough time, or Nicole, I'll hand it over to Nicole then.
Thanks, Mason. Thanks. I think we have a few minutes if you maybe want to discuss one or two use cases of how this new editor could work. And then we can move on from there.
Yeah, sure. I won't share my screen because I don't want to take up too much time from the rest of the agenda. Mason, if you don't mind, stop with the sharing. I guess just one question that we just are having in the chat is how do you create a blank note without it being associated with content? We did just rename the button that lets you do it, but first you have to click add content and then you select create card. Is that the new name? Yeah, sorry, create
note.
Sorry, we just changed it like a few hours ago, but we'll also create a better shortcut so that it's not as hidden and it's a bit more intuitive. So lots more to come on the UI UX side of things. Just from my side, we started testing the editor, I think a couple weeks ago now. And if I'm completely honest, before the new editor, I was taking notes in Recall, but I still had a lot of quick notes on the go in Apple Notes. So I would use Apple Notes for to-do lists, shopping lists, quick ideas. And what's been amazing is that since we've launched the editor, I've slowly started switching and having end-to-end workflows in Recall. Just one very personal use case that's now end-to-end with Recall is my shopping lists. It's really simple and something maybe that you wouldn't necessarily think about using Recall for. But for example, I save all of my recipes in Recall. So when I'm shopping for the week, or if I'm doing a big dinner, I will just go into the global chat and then add those specific recipes and ask it to generate a shopping list based on the grocery aisles. Now I can add that to Notebook. It creates a new note and I change that list into a to-do list. It's then on my phone when I'm in the shops and I can quickly tick it off. That's just one very small practical thing that I've started doing that I was really excited about because that workflow was a little broken between Apple Notes and Recall. And then something I'm really getting quite into is my journaling, productivity journaling in particular. So when I have very productive days or unproductive days, I'll take a quick note on what I did, what I ate, any routines. And slowly over time, I'm chatting with those to pick up specific patterns. And then the last one, which is still very exploratory for me, is my training, fitness training. So I've saved a couple of videos on YouTube on some workouts I'm trying out. I also have a personal fitness goals. They're a mix of different things. And I'm trying to curate a bit of a plan by chatting with the combination of my own goals, my own progress, as well as online content. So what I'm so excited about from this update is it's not just an editor that's changed, it's the use case. So much has been opened up from this update. So excited. And guys, if you're on our Discord or even in the chat, would love to hear any use cases that come up. Feel free to keep us posted. This is new and exciting for us. And yeah, looking to our users for inspiration on how we evolve. But that's a little bit from me. I do want to make sure we have enough time for both questions and some exciting updates that Igor is going to share. So I'll hand it over to Igor. And then we will wrap up with the Q&A.
Thanks, Alex. I'll keep it concise. So yeah, I would like to walk you through the major features that we're focusing on in the upcoming period. So one of the biggest features that we're about to release in coming months or in weeks is agentic chat. And the first phase, you'll be able to interact with your recall data in much more powerful way. So you'll ask questions based on time range, sources, or just collection of cards. And that chat will be able to generate summaries, comparisons, and insights for multiple cards at once. Yeah, that's the first phase. And then in the second phase, the chat becomes even more capable. So you would be able to assign tasks directly to the through the chat. So basically you would be able to create new cards, update existing ones, or just organize your workspace through the chat.
So yeah, those are some of the capabilities of agentic chat. Second large feature that's coming is text to speech. So basically, you'll be able to listen to said content, including both reader and notebook. So this means that you would be able to add your favorite podcasts to recall and listen to them later, directed from the queue, for example. And this unlocks a lot of great use cases like listening while walking or commuting, while doing chores at home or during a workout. Like it turns recall into a tool that fits seamlessly into moments when like reading isn't so practical. And one more exciting feature is shared workspaces. That's the third big feature that's coming up. And in the first version of this feature, users will be able to not just share individual cards as we can share today, but like entire workspace. And this is especially useful for teams and research groups or anyone that's managing a large project with multiple sources and cards collections in one place. And second phase is even more exciting. So workspaces and cards will become fully collaborative. So that will allow multiple users to edit cards together in the real time, of course. And this opens the door for working like workflows like teams collecting and refining research together, or just students collaborating on study notes. Besides these big features, we're also working on some smaller ones that will also add utility to recall. So one of them is highlights. So basically, you would be able to highlight things while you searching the web, and also add notes on those highlights. Also, you would be able to highlight inside the reader and inside the notebook, and also sharing into recall in more seamless way. So basically, you would be able to use your mobile app share intent in more seamless way. So basically, if you would share something from the web, from the YouTube, it would just create a card in the background. You wouldn't have to wait for the card creation to finish in order to use the app or see that card. Yeah, those are some of the features that we're really excited about. There are more small features that are on the roadmap, but yeah, these are the most exciting ones.